What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about two different news stories. I couldn't pick between them, so I thought let's just put them together, shall we? So, we actually got the announcement of that first Halloween. I think it's actually a little confusing because I don't think they've been perfect at explaining it. But if you remember yesterday, just one day ago, right, 24 hours, we talked about, okay, we're getting two Halloween games, right? One of which kind of comes a little bit more from John Carpenter. And, I had speculated, okay, I think one of these is a multiplayer game, right? One of these is going to be your asymmetrical game. The other one hopefully isn't. And it's just to give some variety to it, right? Well, fast forward like half a day, right? And it comes from the studio. So I do think that this is the first of the two Halloween games, even though it's actually Halloween and Evil Dead. Not complaining, just saying, again, the communication's a little bit weird. And it's a 16-bit side-scroller, kind of brawler game. The game looks awesome. I mean, I know it took me a while, to get to that part. It's part confusing, but just also when you watch it in and of itself, looks really, really cool. And there's not too much information. I mean, you can watch, and I'm sure I'll be showing it as we're talking a little bit, but about a minute or so long of a trailer, right? But looks like a blast. Definitely up my alley. I love these type of games, right? You give me, 16-bit. The look of it, I think, is kind of perfect for, what they're doing here. And then, side-scroller platformer, a little bit of combat going on there. Looks really, really cool. And, it's in the Halloween and Evil Dead kind of spirit. Comes out in October. It's got a release date. You can pre-order it. I believe there's the standard edition, which I think is $50, and then there's the collector's edition, which I think is maybe $70 or $80. Comes with actually quite a few things, and not super expensive. I guess, look, the collector's edition stuff isn't super expensive. $50, I mean, yeah, that's not the normal price of a game. I do wonder though, how much is in this? Is it a ton? Is it too fully realized 16-bit era games and they're just putting it together? You know what I mean? Or is it half an hour for each of them, or is it an hour for each of them? That is, to me, that is a little important. While I'm willing to say quality over quantity, and I've said that 1,000 times, and that is kind of my stance on these things, $50, not too bad. But if we're talking about a 1 or 2 hour experience here, then okay, it better be the best 1 to 2 hours of my entire life. So again, that just I think comes from the lack of info that we have on it. But hey, game comes out in 2 months from now, so we don't have too much longer to wait. Then the next story is Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I think that's the name. Previews. We got some previews today. People were able to play it. The amount of hours is kind of all over the place. I saw ACG. He said 10 hours in the video. The title was 20. I saw the Sphere Hunter that talked about a couple hours. It didn't really sound like it was 10. So I don't really know how many hours people are. Maybe they're playing half the game for all I know. But that's okay. That's completely cool. It's just I'm curious of what did they actually get to play in this game. But we got some previews. We got some kind of extended looks. And I'll be honest, I watched a couple of these and I read a couple. And very much, if you watched maybe a few days ago, honestly, the creative director talked about, they did some sort of developer type diary thing, and they kind of went over the enhancements to it, right? Just moving while aiming, right? Something as simple as that. Or they talked about how time works now, right? With the clock or with your watch, different than the original game. It's about a 10-15 minute thing, maybe a little bit more, and pretty insightful, honestly. If you're wondering what exactly has changed between the first game and the original game, I should say, and this one, how buying clothing, and now you have a wardrobe type place, right? Things like that. They went over a lot of that in that video. I watched it, didn't talk about it, didn't make a video on it, but now the previews are out, and the positives are a lot of those. You're hearing the same kind of thing where it's oh, some of these quality of life things are a lot better, and they're referencing what that video was. So this again, you can watch these previews on your own. I kind of just wanted to bring attention to it just in general. Looks solid. I said before, in terms of my 2 cents, I'm not a big Dead Rising guy. I know a lot of people say it peaked with 1 or 2 and then it kind of just continued to decline. I actually have never liked it, and I mean, I never really gave it too much of a chance. It was kind of a one and done thing for me back in I got my PS3 in 09, so probably 09, 10, 11. That's when I was trying out so many of the games of the last 5 years before it. It was kind of a one and done thing. I wasn't impressed. I didn't really like it, but I'm very much different. I play 1,000 games versus back then maybe I played 5. So would I like it now? I actually think I would, to be honest with you. And again, the quality of life stuff and just the improvements. The only thing that I've seen, I think the Sphere Hunter talked about it, in terms of like the voice cast, like this is very different. I think nobody was brought back from the original game. It sounds like the pacing of some of the sentences and the cutscenes and kind of reactions is different. She talked about like it being maybe too easy at points and like the leveling system. So, there are some things I think to keep an eye on. It is very close to like a one-to-one thing, but you could say like, well, without any of the voice actors, there is a big separation, right? Where it's not so one-to-one anymore. But the game overall looks really impressive. It looks more like a remake, at least in my eyes. Looks more like a remake than a remaster. I saw a lot of people saying, nah, it's probably a good name for it because some things were more improved than other things. Like some of it you might say is a remake, some of it you might say is a remaster. So it kind of fits that, what deluxe, whatever they call it, right? It kind of fits that phrase or that term. So I'm excited for it. I talked about on my main channel a few days ago, the one thing that really bugs me with this game is they're doing the same thing, roughly, that Lollipop Chainsaw is doing, which is they're releasing it digitally in September. And I feel like because it's a more of a collector's type thing, maybe that's wrong, or maybe I'm not saying it right, but I don't know. When you do something like this, right, when you're remaking this original that's very old, like 18 years old, right? So they're having the digital version come out in September, but the physical edition doesn't come out till November. And this is kind of one of those games, just like Lollipop Chainsaw, I would like physically. So I'm kind of in like a little bit of a conundrum where do I buy it digitally, but then like I don't really want to buy it twice. I'm not even that big of a fan. I'm willing to give it a chance, but I'm not a huge fan. So like why would I buy it 2 times? Or then do I have to wait till November and maybe do the physical version? So just want to throw that out in case maybe people didn't know they are separating the physical release from the digital release. I hate that. I actually did a whole video on that on Podcast Now. So let me know what you guys think about both these stories in the comments. Make sure as always you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.